This week on FX Guide TV.
We explore the interesting workflow using Mari taken to a new level on the short film Rise.
This and more coming up next.
Hello, I'm Angie and welcome to FX Guide TV. This week we have a special episode recorded back at SIGGRAPH in California. One of the most impressive presentations made on the Foundry booth was Scott Metzger's contribution to the short film Rise. Scott's work, especially with Mari, is just incredible and builds on the work he showed a year ago with LiDAR scanning his apartment. Now he's doing an entire warehouse.
Good morning, my name is David Karlak and I'm the director of a short film titled Rise, and with me is Scott Metzger, the visual effects supervisor. Rise is a film about robots in the future, and so what we're going to be doing today is sharing with you or demoing the visual effects pipeline that Scott has built to bring these characters to life, in addition to a pipeline that he created to create digital sets that we can revisit in post, after we've shot the film, in order to get pickup shots and reshoots, as well as completely CG photorealistic shots that that rival anything that you could get on film on the day. And so starting with Basil, our lead character, is designed by Greg Broadmoor over at Weta, and so with Scott, we've been auditioning different ways to bring this character to life, and Scott's going to get into that right now. And Scott, take it away.
So this right now is going to be our first area I'm going to cover. So what you're seeing is a screen grab inside of Modo with Adam Lewis driving. And if you're not familiar with Adam Lewis's work, you can go to adamvfx.com. And so what Adam is doing is he's taking a scan that we have from hydraulics. And so hydraulics is really nice enough to actually give us a scan of Anton. And so what Adam's doing is he's going to go and take an existing topology, bring it into Modo, and he's then going to take the scan data and he's going to basically match up and try to get all the vertices to conform to the scan data using the existing topology. So what's really, really important is that he starts with just half the face, and starting off symmetrically. And then he'll take that half side of the face and actually bring it into topogun. And what topogun works as is it relaxes the vertices against the scan data and kind of works like a magnet would with another surface. And it's a little bit of a back and forth method to go between topogun and Modo to make sure that you can conform the geometry as close as possible to the original scan before you actually bring that in. And so what Adam's doing now is he's stitching and marrying the other face to get it a little bit more asymmetrical, and he'll bring it right back into to Modo to kind of smooth out those vertices, get them a lot closer, and then go back and forth from topogun to repeat that process a few times until we get a close looking face. So because Anton is going to be CG everywhere else, so his whole robot body will be CG. What we do is we actually film the plate photography of him acting in the scene file, and then we'll track and roto his face, and then integrate that into the actual CG robot together. So what you're seeing here is a finished torso model by Broadmoor, and also Mike Hill was doing some 3D concept to this character to really add a lot of the intricate 3D details around the chest and head area. So it's really, really exciting. Wesley Griffith also did the resurfacing and extra modeling of the hard surface work. So there's a lot of artistry involved in getting this asset complete. So you can see we're in Modo right now with about 38 million polygons subdivided. And I'm just kind of going over some of the intricate details of this model. And it's a very large asset. I've done a lot of robot assets, and I think this is really the largest one. And so the next thing I have to do is basically texture all this stuff in Mari and then set up the V-Ray renders. And so what you're seeing now is a really primitive, this is like a quick little color test. There's no textures on the robot. It's a temp texture for the face, but you can see we're trying to come up with a way to blend the photography with the actual robot aspects and create refracting layers beneath the skin, to kind of marry everything together. So it's still work in progress, but we're definitely going to be getting somewhere pretty soon. All right, going to the environment. So creating these environment, the CG environment, it's a process of capturing spherical photography with non-spherical photography. So what I did is I went around shooting with a 24mm 1.4 Nikkor lens, and then I also used a 10.5 Nikkor DX lens that was shaped by a gentleman in Germany named Tobias Vollmer at pano3d.de. So he was very, very helpful in actually getting that lens perfectly adjusted to shoot the photography. And so it's really important to go through grabbing as much detail as you can with the 24mm, but what actually happens is you don't grab everything. There's no way to grab everything with your light changing with a non-spherical lens, so that's when you have to put on the 10.5 and actually shoot all the photography with a spherical HDR, because you'll grab everything all around you at 11K, which is a lot of resolution to use later on for painting. The other important thing is to actually shoot a Macbeth chart in the same spot for both lenses, so you can calibrate the actual color going from one image to another image. So you can see here in this video that we do have a lot of range of the light collected. Now, the next part is the scanning of the set. So we once again used a Faro 3D scanner. Faro was great to help us out and just help us capture this environment for our purposes. And there's a large area. We originally were only going to use the scan data for 2 CG shots, but we've scanned a little bit extra, and you can see that by this window we have a little bit of geometry that actually captured outside of the building for creating the buildings outside. So there's a lot of detail involved with these scans, and using GeoMagick, it's a really quick way to actually take the scan data, and what I'll do is I'll chop it up in sections. So we have about maybe 10 to 12 areas of the scan that are going to be meshed into really high polygons. So you can see here we have about 50 million polygons running on a K5000 inside, and if you wanted to, using the K6000, I could get about 100 million polygons inside Viewport 2.0, which is really a lot of data. And what's important is to resurface all this raw scan data and then line up photography to it. So what I'll then do is take the 24mm photography, I'll tone map it so I can, go through, and we'll kind of use this to line up the cameras, and then it will also assist in the paintwork for projecting from the camera, but also for the extra modeling help. Sometimes the scanner won't pick up everything because there's so many occluding objects, so you can then line up the undistorted photography to the scan data inside of Maya to very, very quickly get some more accurate results in terms of missing information. So this is probably the longest process. Doing all the camera lineups is very, very long. So what you really want to do is make sure that you save some time to get those cameras lined up with the accurate scan data. So going back into Modo, what we're going to do is we're actually going to do some resurfacing using the topology pen, and the topology pen is very quick because I can grab edges, move the edges around, I can take the actual vertices without switching a tool and adjust that all in one. So it's very, very fast when it comes to actually resurfacing all the scan data to a very clean quad mesh. So remodeling everything in quads is very, very important. So next what we'll do is we'll take it back into Maya, double check the accuracy of the retopology against the original scan data, make any final adjustments. And this environment was definitely not just done by myself. I had Carlos Foyo to help out, and also Halon provided some really great help in terms of getting all the resurfaced geometry done. And so you can see here in our video, what we have is we have the outside of the environment that's been modeled, and because the scanner didn't pick up everything, I still had a small little chunk of scan data that I was able to line up the camera to, and once you have a correct camera placed in 3D space against the scan data, I can then model from just the photography and the lined up camera. Now, going into Modo, I found this amazing guy, Seneca. He's this Modo Pro, and he has a page called indigosm.com, and I believe he works at id Software, and there's this amazing tool called Lazy Select, and what his Lazy Select script does is it will select all similar faces in a scene file and allow you to very, very quickly start the UV process. So this whole environment that we're actually using was done in about, gosh, I'm trying to think. It was probably done in like one sitting, like one 16-hour sitting of doing all the actual UVs. And I'm never really big into UVs, but actually doing UVs in Modo is a lot of fun. It's very, very quick and very intuitive to actually use Modo for the UVing, for the resurfacing. It's a fantastic tool. And I'm not just saying that because I love the Foundry. I really do mean it. I would not use something if it was not the best tool for the job. And in terms of the UVing and model work, Modo is phenomenal for that. Now, one of the as you can see here in this clip, what we do is we have multiple sections that are actually set up. We have a high resolution area, which is all 8K tiles, and then outside the 8K tile area, we're going to have about 4K tiles, and then beyond the 4K, which is like the far wall, we're just using 2K because we're never planning on going, to the far edges of the environment. So there's a lot of texture going on in the scene file, but we'll try it out and see what happens in the renders. Now, the last thing I want to go over is a small little thing, but you can see here in the corner, what we have is we have statistics. And what the statistics actually do inside of Modo is they show how many triangles you have, how many four-sided polygons, and then 5 and greater. And because really what you want is you want to have all quads. And instantly, just by looking at this, I can actually show and see how many triangles are mixed in with my nice clean quads. And there's nothing worse than starting to paint and you run into all these issues with the topology of all the polygons not being quads, or you have these hidden n-gons somewhere. So just being able to look very, very quickly, select and see all the bad geometry in your scene is an important thing to be aware of and know. So I definitely give props to Modo for making some very, very nice tools. All right, so now we're going to go and do a live demo inside of Mari using the K6000 graphics card by NVIDIA that just came out. And so here we have the Rise environment, and looking at the resolution for the UVs, we have 8K for all the close-up detail. For the medium res detail, we're using about 4K tiles, and for everything outside, which is going to be the low res, I'm showing about 2K for those tiles. So it's kind of set up and split for GPU, so we can load everything onto the card. And currently for this project, we're using a K6000. So the K6000 has about 12 gigabytes of RAM. And what's really important about that is that I can use the highest resolution of the paint buffer, all the actual textures that we're baking onto this, and then when we're previewing as well, our texture bias inside of Mari is set for about 16K. So with a 16K texture, I can keep and paint all these environments without having low resolution textures load in to fit all the images on RAM, so you're able to paint these massive environments in a short amount of time. So what I'm going to do is go to one of the camera lineups, and you can see right here we have frames 1 to 94, all the different lined up positions from the scan data that we did. So if we go, for instance, I'm going to turn off all the objects other than our medium quality, and we'll just turn everything else off here. And I'm going to grab a single frame that was taken with the Nikon D800, and we're going to go and grab frame number 20. So you can see we have all of our undistorted, neutralized images in full EXR. So we'll grab frame 20. All right, fantastic. And kind of zooming out, you can see the film gate of the camera along with the 8K paintable resolution. And I'm just going to line up the edges to fit this camera projector. And I can go around and really quickly kind of adjust the exposure just to visually see where I'm painting all the dark areas. And we'll just kind of like scribble on the screen where we want this current projection to paint through onto the geometry. So it's really good to use the non-spherical photography just to get the real close-up, extra sharp detail that you won't be able to capture from a 11K spherical HDR. Using both of these images is very beneficial for all the photo reprojection techniques for the environment. So if I turn off our wireframe display, you can see the areas that we're actually painting on the screen. And what I'm going to then do is just kind of bake and commit this to the disk. So we're using a Fusion IO card for all the cache data. Fusion IO is very fast at handling a lot of this baking data, along with the 8K buffer. If we take a look at all the settings for preferences for GPU, I mean, we're almost maxed out. We have 8K for this, 16K for that. So it was really exciting to be able to take this K6000, try it out, build this environment. Carl Rand from the Foundry spent some time working with us with NVIDIA to really maximize the potential of this card with Mari, and it's pretty exciting to actually see the results when everything is said and done. Just kind of looking through the environment, you can see we have areas that have been included from the projection. And so the next thing I want to do is I want to start loading up a spherical projection. And what makes this technique a lot easier in Mari 2.0 is the whole layer system. So I can actually load up multiple spherical HDRs, 11Ks. I'm not restricted to 1 or 2. I can load up 8 or 9 of these at once. And these are multiple 11K images being handled on the GPU. In real time, so I can interactively move them around. So if we go over to our layer system here, you can see I already have some pre-lined up spherical HDRs. I also have some geometry in the scene file that kind of shows me where these projections lie. So these were basically exported after I lined them up. And if we want, for instance, position number 2, which covers this area of the scene, I can just turn off our helper. And then we're going to go up and find position number 2. I'm going to paste it over the layer of the current baked camera geometry. I'm going to remove the current mask that we have existing prior, and let's load up the 11K file. So let's go to position 2 under here, 10.5, and here's our map. So we're going to load this up. All right, great. So the 11K file is loaded. We're going to turn this on, and you can see there's a lot of resolution here in this one image. You can also see where you kind of lose quality in the good and bad parts of the map. And so the fun thing about this is setting up multiple spherical HDRs is very easy. I can also go in here. I can hold down Control, middle mouse roll, and we can move the offset of this in 3D space. To do all the lineups very quickly. We can also go to the rotation. I can middle mouse drag, and we can slowly, finally, kind of precisely place the rotation of the environment as well. And when we want to paint a layer and say, hey, I want to basically paint, keep some areas of the map that are from the camera projection or either from the spherical HDR, what I want to do is I want to right click on the layer mask, and we're going to add this layer mask, choose hide all. And when we choose the hide all for the layer mask, what this is going to do is this is going to allow us to then go in and paint the areas where we want the spherical HDR. So you can see here, I can just go in here, keep all the good areas with the spherical HDR, and then choose or decide where I want the camera projections to lie. And once I'm happy with this painted area of the spherical HDR, I can then copy that. Now, if there are other parts that don't seem to really line up as well for the spherical HDR, what I can do is I can take the position 2, which is already using a loaded HDR, and copy and paste that map. When you copy and paste multiple HDRs that are the same, it's not going to use the full 1 gigabyte of texture memory. It's going to probably use about 400 to 300 megabytes. So you can really reuse the same HDRs without setting your overhead of your graphics GPU, which is great. And then what I'll do is I'll basically remove the mask for this, and I can reposition the offset of this environment like so. And right click again, and we'll go layer mask, add mask, hide all. And I'm just going to kind of start painting a new layer of that same HDR, kind of like on top of the pre-existing one. And if I want to pull something away, I press X, we swap the matte color, and then I can finally adjust the actual blend of the spherical HDR. And once again, all these spherical HDRs are still live, so I can go back and readjust them without actually having to unbake them. So if we want to paint on them, I can just right-click on that layer. We can choose Convert to Paintable, and there we have it. So what I'm going to do is now load up the finished piece, and we'll close this scene file and load up the other one. So we're just going to save that. All right, so going through this, you can see all the different camera positions that we had recorded. I'm going to also go to a FBX. It's like, kind of like a fly-through of the scene file, so you can see we're going to have all the stuff being loaded up, and it holds up really well under a 4K television as well. We could definitely paint a lot more detail depending on where the UVs are laid out. So this is kind of the high-quality area of the map. We have the full range of the HDR. I mean, there's tremendous range painted. You can use all this for your reflections of your CG rendered assets, recreating photography of the plate, which we're trying to do with Rise, instead of doing all these pickup shots. And there's also really a great deal of uncharted territories when it comes to even creating virtual environments with Unity for the Oculus Rift, which I really think, if you're familiar with that device and maybe you're making content for it, this would be a really good, might be a fantastic tool to actually get the, some of those, really quick photorealistic results for a really neat new exciting medium. And right now what we're seeing is this is a preview, just a quick test render. It's not 100%, but I think it definitely shows what you can actually do with Mari and the K6000. So this whole environment has full HDR capabilities. We're rendering inside of V-Ray 3.0. We're using a physical camera, so they're very, very quick renders. There's no post other than a custom LUT that we did, but all the exposure, the depth of field, everything you've seen with the motion blur, it's all a V-Ray physical camera. So, what I do like about using V-Ray's physical camera is that it works like a real camera. I think there's maybe one other render that has a nice camera, that's Maxwell, where I can type in an f-stop, but everyone else fails the test in terms of, creating a way to replicate the camera that is based on real-world physics and techniques. So, if you're a photographer coming in to do this sort of work, V-Ray is definitely amazing for that. But these renders take about 20 seconds, and the light effects, you see all the glow. Diffusion is actually being calculated in V-Ray at render as well. So we're pretty excited about this. And David, do you want to talk about this?
Absolutely. And so yeah, I mean, what's really exciting about capturing a set like this is that it gives a director options. By having a fully detailed digital set with a dynamic range of all the photography, in addition to the 3D data captured by the LiDAR scan, you're essentially able to revisit a set. I mean, you could even go as far as using a light stage to shoot foreground actors, foreground elements that need to be live action, and then having those be integrated with this CG environment. And all you really need to do is just give your visual effects supervisor about 30 minutes, and an entire set can be surveyed through LiDAR and HDR photography. And so we're very excited to share this technique with you. Without the support of NVIDIA and the Foundry, this really wouldn't be possible. And so thank you to them, and yeah, having a wonderful time here at SIGGRAPH. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. And don't forget, we rely on the generous support of our insider members. By supporting FX Guide, you make shows like this one possible. Check it out on the homepage of fxguide.com. We really appreciate your support. Well, until next time, follow us on Twitter at fxguidenews. See ya. For more industry news, in-depth features, podcasts and forums, check out fxguide.com. And for visual effects training, check out fxphd.com.